Patience is a virtue, or so they say. We think it is a vital component of decluttering success. In today's podcast, we're talking about the many ways patience needs to be adopted when embarking on a decluttering journey.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're new to the Declutter Hub podcast, you're so welcome. What you'll find is that we try and find a fun factor in the serious business of decluttering. And if you've been here for a while, you know exactly what we mean. So thank you so much for listening.
If you'd like to get involved in conversations relating to this podcast, it all takes place in our Facebook group. So come and join our lovely, warm, supportive community. To find the Facebook group, go to declutterhub.com/group to find out more. Or you can search for the Declutter Hub community on Facebook.
Well, hello, Leslie. Here we are, podcast episode 299.
And you have inspired today's podcast, Ingrid, because last night you went to a Take That concert, your first ever, and had an amazing time. And one of their key songs, which I love, is called Patience.
I know.
Which inspired today's podcast because we thought we'd talk about patience, but we won't sing. We won't sing patience. That might be a step too far. So Take That, for anybody, I believe Take That did not break America, which really surprises me. And so they are massive here in the UK, or they have been, and they've been around for like 35 years. Most people absolutely love them. They put on these massive shows. Ingrid went last night. I've been a few times before. Yeah, and Patience is one of their songs. And so we thought we'd talk about it.
I know. And patience is very, very important. Now, let's come clean, Leslie, before we get started. Are you a patient person?
Patient. It depends. Right. Well, do you think I'm a patient person?
Yes, actually, I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to all out and out say no. I think I am patient with my clients. I am patient in some instances with my children. I'm not patient when it comes to doing things. I'm a bit of a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's interesting. But somehow, if I was decluttering myself, I may not do some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I think I'm allowed because I'm well practiced.
Well, I think you're actually quite patient, but you can be very impatient with other things because you're like, oh, I'm bored now. I want to move on to the next thing. So you can sometimes come across as impatient, but I think it's more that you like to do other things all the time. But I think as a person, I think you're very patient, actually.
Oh, that's nice. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Do I think you're patient? Yeah.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess because you're very controlled, and so the two things go hand in hand, don't they?
Well, I find it very interesting because I think a lot of my clients think I'm very patient.
Yeah, that's what we get paid to do, right?
I know.
Like if we weren't patient and we were like, okay, off you go, come on, let's get this moving. I think we might not have a business. So I feel
that's true.
That goes with the territory of being a professional organizer.
To be honest, I think I'm actually quite impatient. I've gotten a lot better since living in Ireland and in the UK, but I think Dutch people, and I know I'm generalizing here, quite impatient. We jump queues and we just,
I think the problem is it's getting mixed up with other things. So you're probably talking more about the sort of direct, say it how it is, and that can come across as impatient. Whereas patience is more, it's an interesting concept. Maybe we should Google what patience is.
Yes. I'm going to pause the podcast and I'm going to find out. Hold on.
You know what, Ingrid? I feel that when we were preparing for our podcast, perhaps we needed to look at the definition of patience before we started recording, but we didn't, and we now know what it means. So Ingrid, what does patience mean?
Yes, it says here the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, problems, or suffering without becoming annoyed or anxious. Hmm, Leslie, maybe I'm not a patient person at all.
See, I think I am because I'm very calm in those kind of
Yeah,
situations. And so I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. We just need to work our way around it.
yeah,
We're solution finders, aren't we, as
yeah,
professional organizers? So therefore, we have to be patient, really. Do
yeah,
you know what I mean? So, but there's so many different scenarios in which you could be patient. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about patience in the context of a decluttering journey.
yeah.
And really, there are three main ways that you need to exercise patience. Number one, you need to be patient with the actual process of decluttering itself. Number two, you have to be patient with yourself. And number three, you have to be patient with others. And we're going to break it down and we're going to talk about all those three components.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about the process first then, Leslie, because it is really important that when you embark on a decluttering journey or when you're in the decluttering process, you need to set yourself realistic expectations because we can be very overwhelmed by all the clutter. But if we have only kind of pie in the sky thinking, and yeah, we can all do this in 3 days, when your whole house is cluttered and you don't give yourself, enough time, you get these expectations set on yourself, and then you're never going to be able to make them. And then it's very hard. You have to be really patient when you're decluttering and organizing.
I think the point is more that, if you want, there are people who go out there and do 3 days of decluttering back to back and have a fantastic result
Hmm.
from that. But it's maybe not sustainable for the long term and it doesn't lead to long-term mindset change. And so
Hmm.
I think the patience, if you are patient with the process and understand that it is a process that's going to take a little bit of time, what that means is you're likely to get a much better long-term result,
Yeah.
which means that you don't have to keep returning to it. So the patience is about take your time, take it slow, take it one step at a time. Understand that it's going to take a little while. Understand that you're not going to do your sentimental stuff today and your photographs, and you're going to start with something else. And then what that means is your journey is going to be much more controlled and you're going to have a better long-term result. So patience leads to more long-term success, in my opinion.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true because we have to climb that mountain, don't we? We have to feel at some point that the tipping point, like we're now over the bump. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but you can't expect from day one. You see the road where you're going, but you don't see the end. You have to be patient and go. I'm going to have to invest in this.
I know. The problem is what we were talking about before when we were looking at the sort of definition of patience is it's very wrapped up in other things, isn't it? So in some instances with decluttering, of course, most people come into this because they feel very overwhelmed by something, which then leads to an impatience, which then might lead to action.
Yeah.
So impatience might also be useful as well. Do you know what I mean? But overwhelm, impatience, they are two different things, but they're so intrinsically linked in this process. So maybe you do need a little bit of impatience, but then you need to lead that into patience. I don't know, it's hard because I think it's so wrapped up in other things, Ingrid. I
Mm.
think it's important, for us in the decluttering world, we are big advocates of taking your time
Yeah.
because we all want the end result, right? Of course we do. It's human nature. We don't want to spend 6 months getting to the same point. We want to do it quickly and we want to get those results quickly. But then we don't want to step back either. So by taking your time, it can be much more controlled. So I
Yeah.
think patience with the actual process of decluttering and understanding what that process of decluttering actually is absolutely vital to long-term change.
Yeah. I think what we also need to do is in the process, we need to start small. I know we say it all the time, but it is crucial to do that. But of course, we want to dive in and pull everything out and get cracking and, all of those things. Or at least we think we want that. But actually, when are being realistic, we know that that is far too overwhelming. But starting small seems a bit like, well, then I haven't really done anything because we're hard on ourselves all the time, right? So it's like, oh, well, I've only done one drawer, and we're constantly going, but hold on a minute. one drawer, one cupboard, one shelf, one, you know, 10 hangers, whatever, is better than doing nothing at all. But I think because we sometimes can get a bit bogged down with the all or nothing mindset, the starting small can, I think, be very, very tricky for people. But we know after having helped thousands of people in real life and in our membership, that that is the start of those good changes. You won't see dramatic changes overnight. It's just, we see that on the socials, you know, the lovely reels where you see a cluttered room and a clean room. And we think, oh, well, but hold on a minute. That takes a lot of time. And now what you see some other people do on socials is say, this actually took 5 hours, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of decision making, a lot of stuff that's being done behind the scenes that you don't see in a 60-second video on socials, but it looks like it's all can be done quick, and there's no hacks to be found here.
No, I know, but I think we get bombarded with this messaging, right? There's been a big show on the TV here in the UK recently. Stacey Solomon's Sort Your Life Out, which is a lovely program, and there's no doubt that it takes longer than the time that you see, but it's kind of like they're doing an entire house in kind of a week, I think it is, or
Yeah,
something like that. But that involves probably tens of people, doesn't it? All
yeah,
working simultaneously. Well, who? No one's got that, and so if you're embarking on a journey, you need to be patient and you need to set yourself up for this marathon, not a sprint, as we talk about all the time.
yeah.
So important that you set yourself up for success by not expecting the world overnight. You're not going to see those dramatic changes. And it can be hard to become demotivated if you don't see those changes. So therefore, you need to be in that positive mindset, be patient, be patient, be patient. I've told you before, I said before on this podcast, in 2024, I definitely changed up the way that I have done health and well-being. And I decided to take things one change at a time, 1 month at a time. And it's paying dividends because by now, ordinarily, I would have given up and probably slipped back to old habits. But I've stacked one habit on top of the other, whether that's walking, and then I've increased it a little bit and increased it. But I've not done all of the things at the same time. I've not tried to tackle nutrition and health and walking and workouts and sleep. And, I've tried a little bit to do, okay, let me get that nailed for a month and then let me try and put something else in. And it's really working. It's really working. But I know that I'm not going to get the results that I'd really like tomorrow before I go on holiday in a couple of weeks. That's probably not going to happen until this time next year. Do you know what I mean? So I've got to be patient because my impatience in the past has not worked. Is the bottom line. It's not worked. It's kept repeatedly taking me back to where I was before. So I've got to make a change, really. So yes, quite interesting. So most importantly, be patient with the process. It takes time.
Yes. So we've covered being patient with the process. Now let's talk about that people need to be patient with themselves, because we are so hard on ourselves. We briefly touched upon that before, but people are really hard on themselves, aren't they? I haven't done this. I've been so lazy. Why can I not do this? Why have I not done X, Y, and Z, and I've only done A, B, and C? And why am I so slow? And other people seem to be able to do this, and I can't do it. Oh, wow. I mean, gosh, talk about like a negative thinking that's going on.
Exactly. And I think the part of the process, obviously we've got the process of taking it one step at a time, one drawer at a time, one room at a time. But really, when it comes to being patient with yourself, it's not about the physical items or the stuff or the rooms. It's about the process, the emotional process that sits behind that. And you need to be patient with yourself to allow yourself room to grow and change. You need to allow an opportunity for a phased approach. And so if a decision, an emotional decision, is difficult today, then we need to leave it to one side and be confident enough to leave that to one side and then come back to it later on the process. It was interesting, Ingrid, because a couple of weeks ago we put a poll on the Facebook group about what part of the decluttering process is the most difficult. And overwhelmingly, it is still the making of the decisions. It's not the logistics, it's not the preparation, it's not the getting stuff to the charity shop, it's that difficulty with making decisions. And so you need to be patient with yourself to allow that long-term change, and that's where I'm patient with the process of change for health and wellness this year, but I'm also being patient with myself. Like last week, I didn't have a great week, and I'm like, this is not a linear process, okay? Life is going to throw curveballs in my way that I need to learn to not go backwards when these things happen, but to be patient enough with myself to learn that that's just a blip in the road and I just need to reset and start again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Reset and start again. So it's about allowing yourself these blips in the road. It's about allowing yourself when an emotional decision is too difficult to leave it to one side and come back to it. It's about allowing yourself to understand that this is hard. This is why decluttering's hard. Putting stuff into a bin bag, not hard. Making emotional decisions about stuff that you feel that you've got a connection to, that's the hard stuff. That's what decluttering is all about. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got a place for everything, we've got storage, we've got all those things, those peripheral things. But honestly, 80% of the decluttering process is about that decision making. And you need to allow yourself to grow and breathe through that. So it's all about being patient with yourself.
Yeah.
And once you do that, that's when you're going to get that long-term success as well.
Yeah, I think it just but I have got very similar, Leslie. I mean, you are on a kind of a health and well-being journey. I'm on a kind of more, I need to work on my sports, and I'm just not exercising enough. So last year I started with tennis, and I kind of thought, oh, let's just go on a social evening, try to hit a ball, and I quickly realized, wow, actually I really enjoy it, but I cannot play tennis, which makes complete sense because I've never done it before in my life. So I've been taking lessons every week for an hour. And, through the winter, I was still playing. It would have been so easy to go, oh, it's cold or I'm not feeling like it today. But I thought, you know what? I've got that lesson booked. I need to be kind to myself and go, I know you don't want to go, but I know it's for the best that you do. And I went ahead and slowly but surely I've gotten a little bit better, a little bit better. And every once in a while, I'm super frustrated with myself because nothing goes well and I can't hit a ball properly. And other times I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I'm like doing a really, I had a fantastic shot or whatever. But it just takes determination, right? And not thinking that I'm going to be Serena Williams in 3 months' time because nobody will be Serena Williams. And just
Oh,
the
Ingrid,
fact
if
that
anybody can be Serena Williams, Ingrid would totally, but she actually believes that she will be Serena Williams, don't you?
well,
Underneath it all.
I do shout like, come on. And people are like, my friends on the tennis court are like, this is not Wimbledon, Ingrid.
I can imagine. But no, that's it. You've got to be patient, with the process of learning tennis. You've got to be patient with yourself to realize that you're going to
Yeah,
have some good days and some bad days. I think one of the really important things to recognize is that you need to celebrate the wins. And
yeah,
so every week there's two things that are really impactful, that we would kind of urge you all to get involved in if you are in our Facebook group, which is Wednesday Wins and Thankful Thursday. And it's all designed for positivity. And the interesting thing about Wednesday Wins, I mean, somebody's win might be I decluttered my entire garage, or I got to the end of my house, or whatever it is. But other people's wins might be I took a bag of donations that's been sitting in my hallway for 3 weeks, and recognizing that that is a win that you've pushed through, and you go, I've done that, and that's a win in my eyes. And well, the nice thing about Wednesday wins is that everybody's wins are completely different. And I'm sure some people can go, God, that's not much. But to that person, it's an amazing step forward because
yeah,
it means that you've broken the mold of something. And so, don't be afraid to put those wins in, because people like to see the little wins as much as people like to see the big wins. So get involved in Wednesday wins. And then on the day after, on Wednesday wins, we have Thankful Thursday. And that's about taking a step back from your decluttering journey, which can become all consuming sometimes, and thinking, what am I thankful for? And sometimes that might be in the context of decluttering. Sometimes it might be about something that you've done with your family, or a social occasion, or a health thing, or anything like that. Two really positive posts to get into, threads to get involved in, that we would urge you to get involved in, or certainly to take a look at if you don't feel comfortable posting. If you are in our Facebook group, But it's all about celebrating those small victories, those wins, and being thankful for things that we have in our lives. So, so important, isn't it,
Yeah,
Ingrid?
yeah, because I mean, let's be honest, some people are a tortoise and other people are a hare, in their decluttering journey. Some people can grow really fast and some people just have to take it slowly but surely forward. But everybody gets to the end line in the end, slightly in different ways. And whether you do something really small or really big, it's the positivity that counts and that lovely energy that comes out of that you are feeling good about yourself. That's really important.
Do you know what else I wanted to sort of talk about, which I've sort of noticed a little bit in various sort of communities that we've got? We've got this beautiful community of people, right? Really supportive, non-judgmental, super happy, love to see people's journeys unfold. But we also recognize, Ingrid, that if you're not somebody who wants to get involved, that can sometimes become a little bit demotivating for people. So if they see other people that are doing an amazing job, when you feel that you're not doing an amazing job yourself because you've not learned that kindness, you've not learned to celebrate the small wins and things, sometimes it can become demotivating. But we would urge you to still get involved and maybe to think, to dig deep into the wins that you've got that take you that step forward, and not to be demotivated by others, because we always go down that route of comparison, and it can be very dangerous sometimes, Ingrid, can't we? We talk a lot about, particularly in our membership, about your journey, your way. There's lots of different ways to go on a decluttering journey. Some people will have the whole thing nailed in 6 weeks. Other people, it might take 6 months or 6 years. And that's all fine as long as you as an individual are making those steps forward. That's what it's all about. And so it's all about, coming to terms with your own journey. And that takes patience, but it can be easy. We recognize that it can be demotivating to see people who are doing it in a speedy way. Do you know what I mean? It's hard,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
And some people feel like, oh, I don't feel good enough. And it's a natural human response, isn't it? When you get success kind of put in front of your eyes, it can be easy to think, well, I'm not good enough. But
yeah,
we'd urge you to find the good in what you're doing and to recognize that you're going on your own journey and following your own pathway. So important.
yeah. I think I need that was really lovely said, Leslie. So let's go for a break and let's talk some more about patience after the break. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We're talking about patience today. Have a little patience.
Oh, she's
I accidentally sang.
accidentally. Check me out. Move over, Gary Barlow. Ingrid's in town.
Oh, isn't he absolutely brilliant? Oh, wow. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, we have talked about patience, having patience with the process, having patience with yourself. But we also need to talk about having patience with other people. Oh, so tricky. So
It is
tricky,
tricky. And
Leslie.
Ingrid actually said that she thought I was patient. So we're on a winning streak here already. But anyway, so
I
yeah.
dare not to say otherwise, Leslie. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Exactly. So I think, other people invariably are involved and should be involved in our decluttering journey, particularly if we live in a multi-person household. If you don't live in a multi-person household, you don't have to worry too much about other people. But if you do, then they invariably are involved in your decluttering journey. So one of the big things that happens all the time is, once we go on a decluttering journey of our own, we educate ourselves, we become motivated, we go to the right place, we join a community, we learn, we think, we listen to podcasts, we do all of those things, and we are ready to get going. And we always think that other people should be just as ready as we are at the exact same time. And that's not the way it works. And then we get these clashes within families, within partnerships, within husband and wife teams, and it causes problems sometimes. And so our advice to you is about, you need to do, we talked before the break actually about your journey, your way, and it needs to be your journey. You can't expect other people to come on board to your journey at the exact same time.
Yeah, I know. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it? It's like, I'm going to declutter and everybody go, yay, I'm in. But everybody goes, why? Why now? I don't have time. I don't want to do this. Oh, here she goes again. But if you've tried and done this before and it didn't work out really well. So there's lots of things. So focus on yourself Really focus on yourself and your own stuff. And then hopefully over time, other people will come on board. But don't expect this moment of, oh,
Mm.
after 3 days when you're thinking, I'm nailing this here, and nobody says anything. Because they probably are like, oh, well, we'll see what happens. Let's look again in a week or so, and or maybe a month or so. But honestly, focus on yourself, focus on your own stuff, and people will come on board over time, slowly but
May,
surely.
Ingrid, May.
May
Like
come on
I
board.
love your enthusiasm. But it is more of a may than a will. In our
Yeah.
experience, they do typically. So it's definitely more weighted towards will than may. But we can't say will because it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I wanted to sort of unravel there and the things that you spoke about, Ingrid, which is we talked about people, you talked about having done this journey before and perhaps having not been too successful in it or whatever. So people in your family often get worn down because if you were on some kind of mission to do something, a decluttering journey, a weight loss goal, a cooking thing, a health, learning, whatever, and you've picked it up and dropped it, as many of us do all of the time, people become worn down with this cycle of being over enthused and then dropping off and over enthused and dropping off. And they become then cynical about your journey. And that can become very demotivating.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to recognize that. And that's another reason why you need to go down your own path and prove this time that things are different. Sometimes you've got a little bit of a job to do with proving to others that you can do it in a successful way, that
Mm-hmm.
somehow the tools that you've put in place this time are a little bit different to what they've been before, and that the stars are aligning a little bit, which we need as well. We need a little bit of luck on our sides, don't we,
Yeah,
Ingrid?
yeah. And I think you see that as well by the feedback that we get as well. It's like I've read all the decluttering books, I've looked at all the YouTube videos, I've tried a little course there or there before, but nothing really stuck. And then when I found you guys, it really made a massive difference because you actually understand the emotions that sit behind all the clutter. And it's given me a whole like massive light bulb moments on my journey that it's not about the stuff, it's about everything else around it. And I think that's the difference when people come into our membership. It really makes that massive difference because we don't only have the knowledge to share, but also the accountability and the support and the amazing communities of people that we have and that we feel so lucky that we have around us, all the wonderful people. And yeah, I think that it's not just never one thing, is it, Leslie? You need to build
Yeah,
up. It needs to be a bridge. It cannot only be one wooden plank. It has to be a whole bridge with structures in place so you
yeah,
can
yeah.
safely go across.
100%, 100%. So important. And so I think as well, so let's say for you move beyond the kind of cynical, like, oh, here we go again sort of scenario that you might come across. Let's move into a stage where somebody else is on board with making decisions and does want to try and declutter. And this may be somebody that you're helping, so it may be somebody in your household, it may be stuff that's kind of combined or their stuff or whatever, or somebody that you've chosen to help if you are helping a parent or a child or whatever. What you need to recognize as well, and what you need to be patient with, is that your emotions and their emotions are completely different. And so a decision that seems to be completely rational to you, that seems simple to make for you, maybe it's always been simple, maybe it's something that you've learned to work through. So there's different things. People have got different emotional pulls with different types of items. So you need to be patient that the decision that you're willing to make is not necessarily the decision that somebody else is willing to make, because people are at different stages of where they are and in their life and what's important to them and so it's really difficult. So patience definitely comes in when it comes to other people's decision making.
I know you can't rush that. You can't rush it with yourself, but because of course you've been learning over time and you've built up that decluttering muscle over time, it does get slowly but surely easier because in the beginning you think that every decision is going to be hard, but the more you practice it, the more you try it, the more you occasionally step out of your comfort zone to kind of go, okay, I'm ready for this now. I feel ready. but the other people around you, they're not there yet. And there you are going, well, yeah, that's simple decision. And they're going, oh, hold on a minute, because they're just not where you are. So you have to take that into consideration and be patient when you're working with your parents, with your partner, with your children, because everybody is in it in a different mindset. Their habits haven't changed yet. They're starting at the beginning of the road, while you might already be halfway and kind of at the end of the tunnel see that tiny glimmer of light coming, and you're like, woo!
But you know that ultimately your tunnel can't come without the other people coming on board, because there's still stuff hanging around your house that belongs to other people that you're
Yeah,
desperate to also include within your decluttering journey.
yeah,
It's tough when there are other people involved. And it's probably one of the biggest questions that we get is all about, how do you get other people to declutter in the same way as you do?
yeah.
I think one of the things that we really want to talk about is kids. Yeah, kids. Tricky, right?
Start young.
Generally tricky, not just on a decluttering journey. Hard work, but lovely, and the same thing. I think it's so important to be patient enough to spend some time teaching them the fundamentals of stuff, management of stuff, acquisition of stuff, donation of stuff. And that takes time to get across to them. So you need to exercise patience when you are dealing with your children, so that if you are in a situation where you felt overwhelmed or out of control with your stuff, that you can teach them from a very early age not to follow that same pathway. But you need to be patient, because this
Yeah.
takes time, doesn't it, to teach them?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of people say to me, oh, Ingrid, are your kids organized? I'm like, yeah, but it's from a young age, together tidying. I mean, not when they were babies, obviously, but as soon as they could play and kind of walk and pull stuff out of things, I was like, oh, hold on a minute. When you pull stuff out, you can help me put stuff back in. So from that moment on, and then you start with 5 or 10 minutes, and it's all those kind of habits that you then ingrain over time. And now every once in a while the kids go, okay, hold on a minute, I'm going to tidy up my room, and I don't have to nag them. I kind of go, occasionally I'm looking and I'm like in Max's room and I'm like, oh, it's a bit of a tip in here. And then he's like, yeah, but then he's studying and busy, and then suddenly 2 days later I come in and I'm like, oh, it's nice and tidy here. Yeah, I did some tidying up yesterday. And I'm like, oh, well, this is nice, you know what I mean? But that's 16 years, Leslie.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Teaching.
And so you do have to be patient with the kids, and you have to realize that they need to go down their own pathway. I've spoken about this before, really, that it's only when they have ownership of their own home, in my opinion, or their own space, even if it's rented, that the light bulb properly goes on, because they don't care as much if it's in your house and do you know what I mean? There's just something about when they get to a stage where they're paying for everything and making a decision to rent somewhere or buy somewhere to house their stuff, that they have a different association with it than when it's just stuff in their house that they've grown up with. So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely need to be patient with kids. And I think, what we wanted to end on, just flipping that around when we were talking about patience with other people. If you're ever in the position where you are going on a decluttering journey and need help from somebody else, whether that's because you struggle physically, you struggle from a mental health perspective, where you've got a professional organizer in with you, where somebody has come in and said they want to help you for whatever reason, so you are kind of reliant on somebody else to help you through that process, don't be afraid to explain that they need to be patient with you. Only accept that help if they are completely on board with the fact that it's your journey, your way. So, so important, because it can be very damaging to a relationship. If somebody wants to help and you're pushing them away all the time, it can be very damaging to you if they're trying to force you into doing things impatiently, faster than you want to do them, because they're on a time scale over a week. They've got a weekend to commit to this. And so they're like, let's move through this. And you're like, I'm just not ready to go at this speed. And so get those parameters set in stone as soon as that relationship is thought about. I think, not relationship, the kind of process of
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that can really be so helpful, because I think in the end, the decluttering will be more successful and will probably go faster if you have really clear on what the boundaries are and what they can expectations they have from you as well. And I think if there's a better balance in that, it will be much smoother when somebody else helps you. So yeah, definitely, Leslie.
So while we've been talking, Ingrid, I have been thinking about examples of when you've not been patient.
Oh dear. Okay,
Now,
bring it.
when people are late,
Yeah,
when conferences and stuff, if they don't start exactly on time, over dinner, if there's a delay in getting food.
I know.
Am I right?
I get very hangry. Everybody who really knows me who knows me closely knows I think there are actually loads of other organizers that know me from previous conferences. They're like, they see me at one point, I'm like turning around, I'm like, I'm getting hungry now. Where's the food? I actually lagged it last time when I went to the conference. From the conference room to that restaurant was like a bit of a track. And I legged it. I was like, I need to be first at the buffet. I'm absolutely starving. This is not good for me. So I am very impatient.
Exactly. So yeah, I could carry on, but I won't. But yeah, as I reflected at the beginning of this podcast that you were quite patient, but I think there are
Lapses.
momentary lapses of patience. That would be my and
Oh, I hear you. I'm not even gonna fight this because I know you're
and
right.
and I think there are many examples of me displaying the same kind of characteristics. So it's another example of do what we say and not do what we do, I think, isn't it, in this podcast? But I've quite enjoyed talking about patience,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it was good. Really good. Talking about patience, episode 300 is coming up next week. I mean, wow. Who could have thought back in 2018 that we would actually do 300? I know we say it every time when there's a big podcast coming up, but honestly, we feel so privileged that people still tune in and just love it. And we get so much feedback, and it's just absolutely brilliant. And so a big thank you to everyone who's been submitting questions for us. Yeah, we definitely have closed the submissions now because we've got plenty of questions, and we're going to be answering 10 listeners' questions next week in our 300th episode.
How long are we going to carry on this? I'm not sure I've got the patience for this now. I'm joking. Do we just keep on talking while people are still listening?
I think so. That's how it
You
works,
think
isn't
so?
it?
Well, I'm like 85, we're
Yeah.
still going. I don't think I'm going to have patience for you when I'm 85, Ingrid.
I know, that's true. I'm done. Well, anyway, we have a lot of patience for you listeners, so we appreciate you so much. Honestly, more than you would know. We absolutely adore you listening in every week. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.